Earlier today, I had posted on LinkedIn about acceptance. And oh my goodness, there's so many times in working with people that I see that acceptance is the obstacle. It's just the obstacle. I reference that in any 12-step program, the very first step is acceptance. An alcoholic accepts that he's powerless over that substance. In Narcanon, they have that same thing, but with narcotics. Overeaters Anonymous, they have that same thing, but with food. And the reason that that's the first step is that there's never any going forward unless we accept what is. Now, accepting what is doesn't mean that you approve of it, rubber stamp it, make it right. Doesn't mean any of that. It just means that you accept this is where I am, or this is where we are. Since we're talking about partner relationships, you have to accept. There's no improvement without first acceptance. So often I'll be working with a client and they'll start to have this kind of this commentary back and forth with themselves, where we get them talking about the acceptance, but they want to retreat right back and start arguing about what he does or referencing what she does, like in a negative way, like if he'd only not, but that's not acceptance. You can't work with that. You'll just stay stuck. You'll stay stuck trying to somehow get leverage against something that you cannot fix that way. You cannot fix them. They have to fix themselves. But if you love that person and you truly have a vision for where you want to go, this happens. It just happens. You know, you start out and you're on this romantic journey of becoming a couple. And at some point, just the chronic tone of life takes over. There are several things that my husband and I have been through in the course of our almost 35-year marriage. And in neither one of us was it our first marriage. So we brought plenty of baggage, right? We had not succeeded. You know, I had not succeeded once and he had not succeeded twice. And goodness, I had probably not succeeded in relationships even before I got married the first time. And most of you out there, that's your story. Like you're constantly dealing with things that didn't work, and you took on maybe like the person. I've often said that the wife that Denny got was not the wife that my first husband got. This was a different version of me. I was a lot more stand up and speak up and let you know my position. I was much more almost adversarial, I would say, compared to the first time, where I was much more willingly collaborative. And it just took some time for us to develop this cadence of trust, which that's a completely different video, different live stream on trust. But how do you get to trust? Well, first you have to accept where you're at, because there are things that you can do. And I'm going to come back probably tomorrow, and I'll post on the next step in the process of really just transmuting the resistance that you feel, transmuting the negative energy or the irritation, let's call it that. You know, the things that you loved about him or the things that made you chuckle now irritate you, like they really bug you. And likewise, right? How do you develop relational intelligence? That's really what this is about. We hear a lot about emotional intelligence. If you're in any level of leadership, you know emotional intelligence is everything. It's everything. It means emotional intelligence is like the what's the smallest thing that you lose your cool over? So if you have a low emotional intelligence, then the smallest thing you will lose your cool over. And if you have a high emotional intelligence, you don't waver. You just hold your own tone and you stay open and you stay understanding. All great relationships, the partners have a higher level of emotional intelligence. And it always starts first with acceptance, accepting that there's things about him that you love and there's things about him that they just drive you crazy. There's things about her that you love, and there's things about her if she was only better at blah, 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 blah. Well, you got to start with acceptance. You have to accept, here's the package, here's the present, here's the package, here's the conditions that we're operating in. This is where we are now. And I'll come back in the next live stream and we'll talk about the next step. Once you've accepted, then what do you do with it? So tune back in. I will make it a point to be here tomorrow to talk about that next step. I'm off now to host an event, so I must go. But acceptance just means that you accept. This is who he is. This is who she is. This is how they're showing up. Maybe you sense that there's something greater available to them that they were acting as in their better form of themselves, and then they've shrunk back to this more irritable form of themselves, or they have habits where they leave the laundry. Who knows? Any number of things can really bother people and become huge irritation points. They don't have to be, and I'm going to talk about in the next video, in our next live stream, what to do about it. What's the next step? How do you, once you accept, now how do you move in the next step of transmuting it into a higher level of relationship in spite of?